Today I am here to do one of my favorite videos to do every year, and that is the mid-year book freakout tag. This tag was created by Ellie and Chammy, and I will leave all the links you need down below. Let's talk about what I've read so far this year and what I'm looking forward to reading the rest of the year. Now, the very first question is always the hardest one to answer, and that is the best book you've read so far this year. And I gotta say, I feel like this answer is probably a popular one, but I would be lying if I said any other answer for this, and that is definitely Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. I read this book this month actually, and I adore it. This book has been making the rounds lately. It's kind of a new release. It came out last month, I think, but it's a new adult book about Alex, who is the first son of the United States of America, and Prince Henry of Wales, and it's kind of an enemies to lovers story. It was great. I obsessed over it. I'm still obsessed with it. It made me laugh. I almost cried, but I literally laughed out loud reading this book, and that's not something I do very often. So I adored this book. This isn't the last time you'll see this in this video, but it's definitely my favorite book I've read so far this year. Second question is the best sequel you've read so far this year. I don't feel like I've read a ton of sequels, but I think my favorite is probably Two Dark Reigns by Kendar Blake. This is the third book in the Queens of Finburn, Three Dark Crowns series, whatever it's called. I really like this series, and I would probably say that out of the 3 books that are out so far, I probably like this one the least, but it was still like a really high rated book. It was still really good, and it's definitely the best sequel I've read. So yeah. The third question is a new release you haven't read yet but want to. I haven't been doing great on the whole new release thing, just because I own so many backlist books too, but there are 3 that really stand out that I'm a little ashamed I haven't read yet. The first one is On the Come Up by Angie Thomas. This was like one of my absolute most anticipated books of the year, and I've heard really good things about it. The Hate U Give was my favorite book I read the year it came out, I think 2017. And I was super anticipating this, and I haven't read it yet, and I don't know why. I just haven't. I also haven't read Again But Better by Christine Riccio yet, which I don't feel that bad about because this one came out pretty recently, so I feel like a lot of people haven't read it yet. But it is something that I've been very curious about. Probably the one I'm most ashamed of is King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo. I haven't read this yet, mostly because I've been trying to reread the Grisha trilogy first, and I was really good about reading the first 2 books. I listened to the audiobook in my car because my library doesn't have the digital one on overdrive. But then I started working from home, so I wasn't in my car that much, and so I haven't reread Ruin and Rising yet, and I need to. And then I'll finally get to read this. So I'm ashamed, but I'm working on it. It's gonna get read before the end of the year. The fourth question is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Definitely Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I'm very excited about that one. I've already talked about my love for the Three Dark Crown series, so Five Dark Fates is definitely high up there because it's the last book. And The Queen of Nothing, which is the final book in the Cruel Prince, what is that series called? The name escapes me. That trilogy. Number 5 is your biggest disappointment. Honestly, The Rest of Us Just Live Here by Patrick Ness, just because I'd heard so many amazing things about that book, and I liked it. It was fine, but it was just fine. I didn't even bother keeping it because I don't think I'll ever reread it. It was fine, but I had heard how amazing it was, and it didn't give me that feeling, so I was kind of disappointed. The next question is your biggest surprise, and this is super random because this is a pretty old book. I say pretty old, but it came out in 2014. But that book is Ignite Me by Tahereh Mafi. And the reason this was such a big surprise is because Shatter Me was a huge letdown for me. It was an okay book, but it didn't blow me away. It actually made my most disappointing books list of last year, just because I expected so much more. And Unravel Me was better, but I consumed this book in 2 days. I was so into it, and I was shocked. I kind of picked up the audiobook on a whim and devoured it, and I didn't expect to like it that much. So I'm really glad because now I'm super excited to continue on with the series and everything, but it was a huge surprise. I definitely didn't see it coming. The next question is your new favorite author, either a debut or someone who's new to you. Obviously, I really liked Casey McQuiston, and this is her debut novel, but I just really loved the writing style of this book. I think the writing style was one of the reasons I liked it as much as I did. So she's definitely a new favorite, but I also want to mention Taylor Jenkins Reid, just because like I read Evelyn Hugo technically last year, so she wasn't a new author to me this year, but it was at the end of the year and that was the only thing I read by her last year. But this year I've read 3 more books by her, so she's gone from being just like the author of like one of my all-time favorite books to being like an actual favorite author of mine, because I've read so much more by her and I've loved all of them so far. So I'm gonna include her on this list just because she became a favorite this year, but not because I read her for the first time this year, if that makes sense. The next question is your newest fictional crush. I mean, I'm 25 and I read mostly YA, so I feel like that's a little weird, and I really can't think of any like crush-worthy characters in the adult books I read, so I don't really have an answer for this one. The next one is your newest favorite character. Obviously, I adore Alex and Henry like so much, so definitely them. But I want to talk about other characters too, because I keep talking about this book too much. I also really liked Sunny St. James from The Mighty Heart of Sunny St. James by Ashley Herring Blake. She was a great narrator and like main character for this story. A book that made you cry. I don't really cry in books much anymore. I think the one that got me the closest to crying was The Storied Life of A.J. Fickery by Gabrielle Zevin. I don't think I cried, but I got very, very close to doing so. Number 11 is a book that made you happy, and you can probably guess the number 1 book that made me happy. But let's talk about other books too. The Mighty Heart of Sunny St. James by Ashley Herring Blake made me very happy. An Absolutely Remarkable Thing by Hank Green honestly made me pretty happy too. Number 12 is your favorite book-to-movie adaptation you've seen. I actually haven't watched any book-to-movie adaptations this year, so I'm slacking. Really the only thing I've technically seen that's an adaptation is I watched all of Outlander, but I haven't read the books, so I can't comment on whether or not that's an actual like good adaptation or not. It's a good show, but I don't know if it's a good adaptation. Next question is your favorite review you've written so far this year, or for BookTube, your favorite video that you've done. I've been kind of slacking on YouTube, kind of off and on this year, which I'm not super happy with, but I do always like the way my bookshelf tours turn out. Now I haven't done a main bookshelf tour for like this shelf yet, but I have done one for my TBR shelves, which I'll link in the description, and I just always like the way that those videos turn out, so I'm gonna say that one. Most beautiful book you've bought this year. Well, I'm definitely obsessed with the Gryffindor edition of Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban that like just came out. I just got this in the mail a couple of days ago, but I've been collecting these, and this one definitely did not disappoint. It is absolutely gorgeous, and I am just as obsessed with it as I am the other ones. So this one's probably the prettiest one, but I also adore this cover. I just think this is such a pretty cover. I love this cover. And honestly, I really love the cover for Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. It's so simple, and I just think it like captures the essence of the book so well. It's also really pretty under the dust jacket. Like, I love the color choices. And to be honest, like, this is my second favorite book that I've read this year, and I haven't talked about it yet in this video, so I needed to put it somewhere. Oh, and I also bought The Sun Is Also a Star this year by Nicola Yoon, and this is the collector's edition at Barnes & Noble with the purple sprayed edges. So this cover was already stunning, but this just makes it even prettier, and I need to stop talking about pretty books now. And the very last question is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? So every year I make a top 10 list of books I need to read, and I've been slacking on that list this year. I've only read 2 of the 10, so the rest of the books that I need to read on the list are An Ember in the Ashes by Saba Tahir, Falling Kingdoms by Morgan Rhodes, The Hamilton Affair by Elizabeth Cobbs, Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, Attachments by Rainbow Rowell, A Clash of Kings by George R.R. Martin, The Miseducation of Cameron Post by Emily M. Danforth. Now, this is going to be my next read, so by the time this goes up, I may have started this, but I wanted to mention it anyway since at the time of filming this video, I haven't read it yet. And Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel. So that's it for the 2019 Mid-Year Book Freakout tag. I'm going to leave all the questions in the description in case you want to do this tag too, and I will see you guys next time with another video. Bye.